Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this very special show. I am sure it will be a very colorful show of the India International Hospitality Expo 2020 conclave, or the IHE 2020 conclave. As some of you may be knowing, IHE is India's biggest hospitality sector B2B show, and this year is its third year. We were Last year we had a humongous show at the Greater Noida Exposition Mart, which is also known, which gives the company its name, the India International Exposition Mart and Limited. Now that was it was a sprawling, complex, and major physical show. But this time we have crunched it all into a virtual space. So on this virtual platform, we have more than 200 exhibitors and a slew of conferences, master classes, sommelier training sessions, mixology sessions. So we have a whole world of activities happening, which is just a click of the mouse away. Welcome to IHE 2020. I also, convey the greetings of our chairman, Mr. Rakesh Kumar, the chairman of IEML, as well as the president of the fair, Mr. Hari Dadu. I think both gentlemen are very grateful that you're here, and we hope to gain a lot out of the session, because we have had earlier sessions with purchase managers, and the first thing that you hear from them talking about is cost cutting. And the first thing you hear about them is no new future projects, capex bunds. Yeah. So, when we hear all that, we want to know what is the other side of the story, and what are the innovations which are driving the creative instincts of you guys who are in the design business. And I think we have some of the best names in the business. We have got Hemant Sood, who's the chairman of the Triple ID Delhi chapter. We have got Sunita Kohli, who needs no introduction. Anyone who goes to Rashtrapati Bhavan will immediately think about her. She's also, of course, was responsible for the refurb of Racecourse Road, among many projects. I think we can keep listing her projects. We have got Rishu Anand, the incoming chairman. He's the next chairman of Triple ID Delhi chapter, and who actually is very much involved in the business of designing hotels and restaurants. So he'll be able to give a lot of inputs from the ground. We have Ishita Khetarpal, who represents Masha Arts, and we have got Natasha Nanda, who is one of the seasoned players of this industry of providing art to hotels, among other corporate entities. And I think there is a lot to be learned from her. We've got Mohit Agarwal, who represents Warwick Fabrics. The last time we were having a discussion together, we were talking about COVID-proof fabrics. So from COVID-proof fabrics, we are going to talk about design innovations. I think we are going to really have a good time. And of course, we've got Kozima again, who not only enlightens but also entertains. So I think we can expect to have some laughs as he speaks. But he always has some very interesting things to say about the way the design industry is moving forward. With this brief words of introduction, let me ask Hemant Sood to set the ball rolling. Hemant, why don't you start the discussion? And as it'll be a free-flowing discussion, no structure to it, and Hemant will be the disruptor in chief, as he's promised us. So anyone who talks will be shut up by Hemant. So on that note of warning, I pass the baton on to Hemant.
Thank you, Surish, and welcome everyone. It's a pleasure to have you all on board. And firstly, I'd like to thank Mr. Rakesh Kumar and Mr. Hari Dadu and IHE 2020, the whole management, for a wonderful show. Triple ID was partners with them last year, and we were looking forward to partnering with them physically this year too. We had set up 5 mock-up rooms, and we were threatening to set up 10 mock-up rooms for hotels this time. But unfortunately, that couldn't happen. So we will now be on the online space. And so thanks very much, and it's a pleasure to associate with you again. Just a quick brief, like last year, Triple ID is trying to act like a knowledge partner for you. So if there's any more help that you guys need for this exhibition or further, we'll be more than happy to associate. It's been a pleasure in the past. So coming down to this webinar, I think we are going to be talking about design innovations that are required, or innovations that are required in not just design but also materials related to hospitality. And as Sarish has already mentioned, cost cutting is something that's already happening across the industry. Most projects teams, most corporates are already complaining about not having, of course, enough business, and because of that, not being able to spend too much money on the hospitality range. So, how can we approach that? The designers are feeling the pinch, the suppliers are feeling the pinch, so we're all in it together. So, I'd like to start with Sunita and ask her to give us a little opinion on what she thinks is the future of the hospitality industry from a design perspective.
If I may have your permission to speak broadly on what I perceive as the future, please remember that even though I spent 30 years designing hotels and public buildings, of which there are several hotels and one Rashtrapati Bhavan, etc. And I have not been designing hospitality projects in the large way, in the large projects that one used to. And what I find as being a user of some of the best hotels around the world, at least till the pandemic started, is that the growing trend, I think, is towards individuality. No longer do you have, even if it's a large chain hotel, no longer is that the desired outcome, that it be homogeneous, whichever country you go to, whichever city you travel to. Yes, the comfort criteria in a hotel room is the most important, because at the end of the day, that is where a client will spend the maximum amount of time. But having said that, if you're asking me what the trends are, I think the trends are towards creating character, which is contextual to a place, to a country. It is the using of much more organic, natural materials. It is the use of creating luxury, but within, but also which is slightly rusticated so that it's charming. Because to have, say, a luxury hotel like, I won't name the hotel, but say in Abu Dhabi, I think it's not desired at all. So the trend is going towards, in terms of colors that are natural, in materials that are organic, and in workmanship that is craft oriented, without being cottagey. This is what I think the new trend is, and all, of course, within a contemporary global framework of what is considered stylish. So briefly, this is what I think.
Yeah, that's I think, Sunita, wonderful summary of where things are headed. I'd like to bring in Khozema at this point of time. Khozema, you do a lot of hotels. And tell me one thing, that keeping in the mind with the cost cutting that's happening, is the design of the hotels going to change because people are not ready to spend as much anymore?
One housekeeping point. Could you all put yourself on mute? Some background noise is interfering the transmission.
Radhika, can you mute everyone and then we can open up our mics?
Yeah. We'll open up our mics when needed. Okay, fine. Khozema, please unmute yourself.
Himan, thank you. It's a it's a very important question in today's time. Um, we just made a presentation day before yesterday. Client liked the presentation, but he's requested us to revisit for cost cutting. So this is the challenge in today's time which we are facing. But I seriously feel this is a very temporary phase as such, because um, there is, I don't think so people are going to stop traveling. I don't think so that either for leisure, for business, nothing is going to stop. In days to come, there would be already, you will see that lot of travel will happen. Uh, there is a new term which has emerged in this hospitality industry is revenge traveling. So if you look at the probably if somebody is very finely, closely looking at the hospitality industry, uh, they might realize that most of the resorts at most of the weekends are going absolutely bizarre. They don't have any rooms spare. So a lot of those short travels are happening. Families want to go out, have entertainment. So this cost-cutting factor is going to be a short-lived phenomena, which we are facing it today. But eventually, people will realize that without spending the right amount of money, a right product cannot be achieved. So there is a very very distinct line between a product which is from starting from guest house to budget hotels to mid-market hotels and to luxury hotels. So this distinction will need to be brought up. Luxury can't talk about being mid-market, and mid-market can't talk about can't show themselves as a budget hotel. And most of the things are going to it's going to ultimately it's going to be in the direction where market is going to revive, and things will happen like what used to happen. But during this phase of 9 months, we have learned a lot of other things, that how to do more better detailing and bring in more luxury. This is giving a test time for us. So for a product which we need to desire to be, which needs to be produced for a particular segment of hotel, we are trying to uh, we are trying to value engineer it without compromising too much, so that but that value engineering is helping us in a lot of areas, and in future it will definitely help us to bring in more better product uh, when things are going to be more normal as such.
Well, Kuzema, thanks. We are definitely waiting for the new normal. One thing I do agree with you is that the industry is rebounding much faster than we expected. You're right.
Right.
Resorts and are full over the weekends. I myself was trying to go out over the 2nd October weekend, couldn't find a place. So those things are already there. Christmas bookings are already chock a block. So the industry is bouncing back, and people are more resilient than we thought they were. So Rishu, I want to take up from what Kozema said and ask you the same question, except in a slightly different form. Because of the cost cutting that is happening, do you think there will be in future lesser luxury hotels and more business hotels, or will the split remain the same?
So I have a very contrary point of view to what Ms. Sunita and Mr. Kozema said. See, innovation in design will be there primarily from the flow of the space to bringing the technology to keep human interaction to the minimal. So I feel that there will be an increase in the budget allocated for the technology. But on the material front, I feel that we may have to forego our beloved, natural rough organic textured finishes to more smoother artificially made non-porous materials, which are easily manageable. I certainly feel that back in the time, hotels were made keeping a certain life cycle in mind. We were looking at a architectural space which will be there for 30, 40, 50 years. Maybe the interiors will keep on changing in 8 to 10 years. This will certainly change to a drastically lesser lifespan. In fact, I mean, it will only impact in the overall budget. So like the other, the topic is, we are short of budgets, people are not, the hoteliers are not spending. So this is one of the major point that will, bring in this change of overall budget, keeping in mind, design and construction, that we may have to look at the, alternate materials with a
So
shorter.
you're saying that the overall budget will remain more or less the same, but the split between material and technology will shift. More spend on technology now, less spend on material.
Yes.
Okay, so coming back on from that point, on the material point, can I ask Mohit, because you are the guy who supplies all the material to us, the wonderful fabric that we use in all our hotels. So what is your take on that? I remember having a previous conversation with you about antimicrobial, antibacterial, anti whatever, except antiviral fabrics. So where are we on that point now? You're muted, Mohit. Can you just unmute yourself?
I've got plenty to share with you in terms of my experience since we opened our office in May. It's like two sides of a coin. We lost somewhere and we gained somewhere. The places where we lost was when things started normalizing in probably August, September. There were a couple of orders in the hospitality sector which were already in the pipeline and they were about to raise the POs, but then they said, we want to shift down to a slightly less expensive fabric. Because as everybody knows, probably we are in the middle segment. We are not very cheap, nor we are expensive. But the way we gained was that with our head office, wherein we are one of the largest stocking companies in the world. We stock about 1.5 million meters. So where most of the mills which were closed, they were not having the stock. We had plenty of stock to support the orders that had gone probably to the other companies. So they diverted those particular orders to us. And that is where we gained. We even gained, as you mentioned, sir, that about the antimicrobial and health guard fabric that we had to offer to the market during these particular COVID times. And it was already there with us. We were promoting this aggressively in Middle East. So we marketed it on the Zoom calls and with our key architects, friends, and the design fraternity. And we really got some very good orders during that particular time. So we lost somewhere and we gained somewhere. And as in the panel where people were discussing, I've got slightly a different view towards the luxury segment. I started my travel in September and I was staying in one of the few best hotels, and I always used to go to the counter and check with them about the occupancy. They said, sir, we are running on a 60 to 70% of the occupancy. So I don't see that the occupancy has gone down. And in fact, say people like me who probably used to travel to a B-class town wherein used to compromise on a 3 or a 4-star hotel, because of the precautions that are being taken in the luxury segment, especially in a 5-star hotel, I see that going forward, probably people who can afford, who were trying to avoid paying an expensive amount for a luxury hotel, they would move to these particular hotels. And I see a surge probably in another 3-4 months down the line when the vaccine comes up. And people would prefer more to stay in the luxury hotels and a 4 and a 5-star hotel, wherein they maintain the social distancing, they maintain the sanitation, and probably people would be more diverted towards these hotels and luxury hotels than going on to the budgeted hotels. So that's something which I have experienced, because I started my travel in September. It was the peak time before Diwali for me, so I had to travel across the country, and that is my experience with these particular luxury hotels.
Hemant, can I make one point here? Yeah.
Sorry, Saurabh. I would like to add what Mohit said.
Yeah.
Most of the A-class cities, except Delhi, I think so, I have been getting reports that the industry, even city hotels are reviving. Especially after Bombay has opened up, although we are not 100% opened up, but probably if I share the photograph, one of the luxury hotel which I was there on last weekend, there were more than 100 people in the lobby. And there was a huge queue for checking in at 1 p.m. in the afternoon. So there is lot of hotels are, and I would agree with him that a lot of people are feeling more comfortable getting into the luxury and more renowned brand as such, more renowned hotel chain, so that they are sure about the kind of sanitization processes which are being placed are
And so,
taking place over there.
this kind of a pandemic which has got into us, I don't see this kind of a mentality going easily. So at least for 1.5, 2 years, it will remain with all of us, at least the Indians. So I see a surge. I'll see a surge in the hospitality sector. In the
You know,
So
luxury.
COVID is, we have to live with COVID. Probably 1.5, 2 years में पूरी lifetime जीना है हमको.
in this connection, I would like to mention, I just completed a webinar with someone who deals with finances, Now, he was pointing to two things. One, the reason why luxury hotels now seem to be better occupied is the rates have taken a big hit. So now it is much cheaper to go to any hotel, whether it's a budget hotel or a luxury hotel. So he was saying, if you see suddenly there are a lot of people in a particular luxury hotel, it doesn't mean anything to its margins. The margins are still suffering. So that is one big point to be taken into account. The rates are low. Also, business travel is at an all-time low. So I mean, business travel was where they used to make serious money. Now, those are the two factors which will drive down. I think business, at least the business sentiment in hotels, is not going to be very positive. That's the feeling I got. So,
But I feel like it's not only the occupancy which drives the the revenues of the hotels. It's also the spas, the restaurants, the banqueting spaces.
right.
They won't change. I mean, they won't come back to normal for some time now. And I feel that there will be a shift in the way people have been experiencing these spaces. That's my
Right.
personal opinion. I mean,
I think so. Natasha, does that mean the hotels are making new demands on you? Say when you go to them with a project.
It's a mixed bag, sir. I mean, they're delaying the order to pick up for safety reason because of COVID. But what everybody is saying, I do agree that it's going to surge after some time. We have to learn to adopt to this new normal. And the business is picking up and not picking up. We have to be very cost conscious. We have to innovate our products and be within the budget of the clients, what the clients demand us. We can't say this is the cost. We also have to take a hit some way or the other.
So what are the innovations that you're introducing?
I mean, we are corporate art service, Remari. Sunita Auntie knows, a friend of my mom, started by my mom, Mrs. Ritu Nanda.
Right.
And she wanted to make like a art accessible at a low price for hotels, for big projects, working with interior designers, architects. They come with a blueprint. This is my space. This is my budget. This is my color format. And then we give the presentation within the budget. There's a lot of delay happen. They're delaying, postponing it. But small little business is happening. It's going to take time.
Ishita, what about small towns? We keep talking about, of course, tier 1 cities, What about tier 2 and tier 3 cities? Do you see, how does the business there compare with what is happening in Delhi and Mumbai?
So I'll to add to everybody's points, I think everyone's saying some amazing things here, but I think the whole point of, for example, luxury hotels, the whole point of why people are even traveling has changed, right? So, the cost is of course, it's a huge factor, etc. But people used to go to luxury hotels. Like I would go to a JW in a Bombay, Juhu, right? Just for the experience, right? And I'm not getting 100% of that anymore. I'm not getting, like Rishu had also said, the bars and the restaurants and the banquet spaces, and I can't use the gym and I can't use things that I would otherwise actually go to a hotel for. So what is that? And like Mr. Chitwala had said that, it is a lot of revenge traveling now that I've sat at home for 9 months. I think I want to get out. I think I want to go to a good hotel. But at the end of the day, I think my needs are not getting satisfied. So I run an art investment company. So that we're essentially dealing in luxury artworks and higher ticket size artworks, right? So it's not all that commercial. So the whole point is that you need, the kind of artworks that we're giving out, you need for like a huge lobby space or, the centerpiece. If you've seen the Hussain at the Lalit Hotel, stuff like that, right? These are huge ticket size pieces that are there to catch the eye of the beholder and for people to appreciate. But what I do feel is it will take some time for people to get back into the new normal, to even start appreciating the design, the elements, everything that they're even seeing, right? Because I do feel like somewhere that perception is, I mean, they haven't achieved that yet, and people are still coming to terms with the fact that, I mean, everything has changed, and that whole opinion of where as soon as 2020 ends, the pandemic is going to end. So coming, I mean, hit December, I think people have started realizing that that's not what's actually happening, and that this will carry on for some time. I think there is a certain shift in what people are
Yeah.
actually thinking. So, and as far as tier two and tier three cities are involved, I mean, I don't see luxury art anywhere in the picture anymore, because that is not, like you guys said, cost cutting, right? If somebody is cost cutting, they're not looking at high ticket size paintings. They say put something that looks great, and I mean, obviously this looks great, but for them to be able to justify these costs anymore is a little bit tougher. But then again, there's a lot of hotels like in Dehradun, for example, the Madhuban Hotel, which is a very, very old hotel. I don't know if you know. I'm sure you
Right.
guys know that. But these are owned by collectors, and these people are very, very tasteful when it comes to art. So they are still hell bent on still getting their private collections in place, because the cost of investment art has actually also gone down. So this is a good buy actually.
Right. So, Hemant, we have had great first round of ideas, and where does it leave the design community? Do you think what are the innovations you're working on? And are these only short-term innovations, or are you also looking at long-term innovations to deal with the fallout of the pandemic?
Well, I actually left my crystal ball behind, so I can't really predict the future. We
Right.
tried doing that in May together, and look where it landed us. We're no better off. We can't even predict when the vaccine is coming. I'm not even very sure whether I want to try that Russian vaccine or not, because that may have more negative effects than positive.
Right.
But keeping all those things aside, we are not really sure which way things are heading. There are two ways of thinking about it. Both ways have been mentioned. One is that definitely agree with what Rishu has to say, that technology will definitely be on the rise. So designers will have to factor in more technology and more spend on technology. So definitely one is that is a cost shift that's going to happen. And also agree with what Khozema had to say, that things are reviving very, very fast, faster than what we expected. But once again, as Rishu said, the people are there, the numbers are there. 100 people in the lobby, which Khozema saw, he was one of them. So the 99 other people are very much there in that lobby. But the only problem is the room rates have gone down drastically. So the top lines have slipped, the bottom lines have slipped. When both of them are crashing, then who is going to spend the money? And where is the money to spend coming from? As it is, they've sat on their backsides for the last 6 months. Now, when they're doing some business, desperate business, I would call it, you're doing it only because your room rates are low, and you're doing it despite the fact. Remember, in Delhi, we just had weddings. It went from 50 people to 100 people to 200 people. It's back to 50 people now.
Right.
So people who had booked a wedding a month and a half ago don't know what to do with the balance 150 people. So these are all practical issues that are there. And as again Rishu said, as long as the pubs and the restaurants, the coffee shops, everything is closed, who's going to go to a hotel? I'll go to a hotel only if I have to either take a holiday or if I have to go for business, and I'll make it as short as possible. I'm not going to extend my stay simply because it's a hotel. So keeping all those factors in mind, I think there's going to be a cost crunch for sure. It's going to be here for a year and a half at least, maybe more. And that is going to result in design changes that we as designers have to make. I do agree with Rishu. There is a lot of materials that will change. We cannot use people don't want easy to clean stuff now. So it has to be less of carving, less of intricate moldings and flutings, and probably more straight line furniture. I think there may be a shift from luxury to business hotels, because People want a quick in and out now. It's not really to extended stay. All those things are going to play a role in the future of design as we look at it for hospitality. And also a word for our friends from the industry. People are going to think a lot before, as Mohit said, cut down on the cost of buying the fabric, cut down on the cost of the artwork, as both Nitasha and Nishita have said. So the spends are going to be down, and that is going to affect the entire industry, design and the vendor industry for sure.
So, Mohit, you are on the supply side of the business, and you're dealing in fabrics, which again, like we were hearing purchase managers saying that they're increasingly looking for local alternatives. One of the ways to cut costs is look for local alternatives. And so how do you measure up to this combination, which is emerging in your backyard?
So for us, what measure that we have taken is, first we have taken another warehouse about 3 months back to increase the capacity. And because the planes are flying, because most of the fabrics we used to get by air from our head office, that is Australia.
Yeah.
So what we have done is to reduce the cost, because the air travel and the air freights have, say, a hotel competitive product. Though it's taking a bit of a time, but more of fabrics which are best sellers down here in India, accepted by the hospitality industry, and offer them probably at the same price or slightly lesser in terms of what we used to offer them by the air shipments. So we have also done our maths in terms of what we can save, because it's not money which is going to go into our pockets or to a particular buyer. So it was being basically we were paying it to the logistic partners like the DHLs and the TNT. So we have moved from these particular air shipments to more of sea shipments, wherein we are able to at least protect the cost that we used to offer, or at least reduce by 5 to 10%. So we are offering the same product by doing slightly changing the mode of our transport, and then offering the same product at a slightly cheaper rather at the same price. Because if you see most of the industry, you might take anything, the prices have gone by 10 to 15, 20%. We might
No,
take
Mohit, if I can jump in, I'm sorry to interject. Mohit, just wanted to interject, sorry, but I think we were a little off topic on that one, because Suresh was asking about local fabric or local craft. Your fabric all comes from a foreign country. It's already pre-manufactured. We were talking about local art and craft. It can be incorporated.
May I come in on that?
Yes, so you would be the right person to actually come in on that, because you've already talked about craft.
No, I was using, I became a hotel designer very, very early in the 70s, at a time when there were no other Indian interior designers who were working internationally. So I've seen both sides of.
Sorry, I didn't hear you, sir.
Sorry? I said that I began my career as a hotel designer very early on, in the early 70s, when there really weren't that many designers, Indian designers, who were working internationally. I was fortunate enough to be one of those. And so I've seen, several things that have happened, several things that have changed when liberalization took place in India. Because suddenly everything that hotels could import, but everything that had to be otherwise be handcrafted, even like tower bowls, after the 90s and liberalization, there was a sea change. And what today's designers take for granted, that it is available. It may be imported, but it's available across the country. So that taking for granted did not exist in my main years. What I want to say is that I find that it's coming back to that. Back in the sense, firstly, I think that particularly the Indian customer, the Indian client has become much, much more discerning. Because in these intervening years after the 1990s, when liberalization opened, perhaps some of you weren't even born then, they were so exposed to what the rest of the world had to offer and what could be used. And therefore, I think Mr. Agarwal, what he's saying, a business like his would not really have been possible. Am I right? In the 70s, 80s, before liberalization.
Mhm.
That's correct, ma'am. That's correct.
Yeah. So now what is happening is I feel that the client is become much more discerning. They want their money's worth, but they also are much more discerning about wanting good design. So what is good design that is understood internationally today? It is going back to organic. It is going back to what is representative of where you're putting up the hotel. It's not like, nobody's interested if you're doing a hotel in Kana, that you want to create a little Manhattan over there. People object to that sort of disassociation of design with the hotel. So it is, people come to a hotel, whether it's a business hotel or it's a resort or it's a normal hotel. They come to it, but they still want some sort of character. Now, I have, well, next year it'll be 50 years of work, but I think that one has, because of exposure, frankly, built up a very contemporary mindset. I love contemporary design. And I think what is going to happen is that within a very contemporary framework, you will, in every hotel room, in a hotel lobby, in restaurants, across the board, or what a hotel contains, you will find that there are focal things being placed which belong, which are handmade, or which are organic. And hotels, of course, also move with color trends and color palettes that are set up. All that is happening, but all that is also happening more from natural colors. And India, of course, is fantastic because, what Diana Vreeland, the legendary the legendary editor of Vogue, had said. I mean, we have fuchsia pink. You can be walking down and she said fuchsia, that pink is the navy blue of India. It so happens that navy blue is the color for today. Indigo is the color for today. So in India, we've got this massive choice. And I think it is about time that we celebrated ourselves. And the more and more of that happens in India, believe me, we will be creating better products.
That's right. So, Natasha, which brings me, I think this is a great lead that Mrs. Kohli has given to us. Now, Ishita, I'll be asking this question to you too. Natasha, how does one operationalize what Mrs. Kohli just talked about? Do you see that hotels are asking for a particular?
We are learning from Sunita Aunty and everybody in this August gathering.
Okay.
Anji, what do you say?
So not just what do you change any? Do you sense any change in the way hotels are looking at sourcing?
It's going to be more digital meetings instead of going to the client's place.
No, I'm talking in terms of material. Are they asking for Are they asking for natural material or more Indian colors?
More Indian origin, as she said, organic. Seeing more hygienic, doesn't get spoiled thing faster. In cost cutting wise also, because they are very conscious. Everybody's taken the pain and losing money and profit. So from that angle, we have to be more innovative in cutting our margin further down.
Right. Okay. So
normally that's, I mean, I'm not trying to be extreme, but we have to reinvent ourselves.
Right.
Still learning this.
Ishita, what's your take on this?
Tarish, I think.
No, you're dealing in more luxury. I mean, more upscale art. Not so.
Yeah. So what my understanding is that even if it's the designer, even if it's the client, I think people really appreciate identity. People want to have something that they associate themselves with or a hotel with, right? And I think a lot of elements in terms of design, in terms of art, it all goes together. and that is what gives a hotel or any space an identity, right? So and like ma'am Sunita Kohli ma'am had said that people want more Indian, more local, more organic, more, I mean, just close to home, right? Closer to home things. It's also because somewhere, and I know I come across as a millennial right now, but it's also because somewhere that is the ongoing marketing trend as well, right? You are doing your hashtag vocal for local. You are doing absolutely everything in terms of even promoting the local culture. And while you're doing that, you are having a little bit of an impact on the audience's mentality as well. And somewhere in the pandemic, obviously, our artists have been affected as well, right? And Natasha ma'am would also, know that, right? And
Call me Natasha.
all right. Okay. So
Yeah.
she would also understand that, right? Because everybody in the fraternity has been impacted. More are vendors than us also, right? So if my artist has been impacted, he also sort of somewhere understands that, okay, I want my art out. I want my art marketed. So they also give you, I mean, sourcing has also become a little bit easier for us, we're trying our best. We're trying our best to support and market, but they're also trying their best to sort of
Right.
understand what everybody in the fraternity is going through.
Right. So,
Can I
Khosema, yeah,
interject,
sir.
if I may?
Yeah,
I just
please.
want to add to, when I speak of using our own elements from our own culture, or our own craftsmanship, uh, I have never ever in my entire working life ever patronized the Indian craftsmen, because I think they're greater than us. They're greater than any designer. They're greater than any architect. So having stated my position first, you see, because that colonial mindset is what treated it all as vernacular, and which was actually as a pejorative. It was, but today, if I'm looking at a Gond artist and in a very contemporary interior, uh, using a collection of Gond art, uh, to me, that could be the ultimate sophistication. So what I'm saying is that we need to have a little more confidence in ourselves and what we've had for centuries and use it, because the world is changing. The world is so global. We have wonderful materials that are coming out from Japan and from even places like New Zealand that are being made, which are contemporary and set for the hotel industry. But at the same time, marry it well with what is ours, with what is handmade, hand painted, whatever it is that we are doing, and take joy in it. And
Yeah.
I, for one, think that the hotel industry will bounce back. This is my feeling, because it will bounce back. This business of the client always wanting to cut costs, then let them decide what type of hotel they want, because you should know what your budget is. Can you afford an ambassador, or do you want to afford a BMW? वैसी design हो सकता है, but with proper design. Because say if Jaisalmer stone is so expensive, or slate is so, I beg your pardon, inexpensive, you can do wonderful designs with that. You don't have to use Italian marble. So it is also a question of what materials you use, which changes the budget of any project. And when I say any project, I mean we do some homes that can be as large as some boutique hotels and certainly cost as much. But they, even within that luxury segment of large residences, of course I do small residences also, and incidentally I live in a very small apartment. But having had that exposure of and the good fortune of doing this, even every area is not to be treated with the same sort of costs, as you very well know. So it can change. So I think designers, architects have to be very adaptable to what is happening, and I think
So,
that's the exciting part of design. That's
if
what
it's
I want.
there, I'll bring in Cosima into the picture now. You've heard Sunita ji talking about now. Are you conscious of the in your work? Are you increasingly incorporating indigenous local elements? How do you see this? What she's talking about becoming more national.
No,
So
no nationalistic tendency
No,
that
no,
I'm
no, no.
talking
I'm not
about.
saying national in the sense that
No. And
more
this
people adopt.
business of
so
and this whole business of saying that let's start using things by hand. Arey bhaiya, we've always done it. So this is no new trend. This is no
Right.
nationalist thing that we are
Yeah.
speaking about.
Yeah.
so I am in absolute agreement with Sunita ji. I've been doing all the segments of hotels, and the most important part is that the moment we get down in the lower segment of hotels, they come as a cookie cutter model. So because the wheel cannot be reinvented every now and then, that's why we need to make something which is very monotonous. But that takes away the complete identity of the property, and every owner wants the pride. And I personally have a very strong belief that each and every hotel should have its own identity. It should have its own impression, which should be left to the guest. And that identity can be created by regional influences only. And if you are going to create something, what is there as an international chain comes with one prototype of an hotel, and then you start replicating what US has done. I don't think so. Our Asian, or as a matter of fact, if we go to the micro level of Indian guests, is not ready for what is existing in Asia, in US and Europe. So we need to do those design changes which are relevant. Apart from that, to bring an identity to that property, we have been doing absolutely local influence of art. So there is so much of abundance. There is a research which is required. We need to get inspired through nature, through the local art and craft, and then bring it into the property which is there. Yes, I do also agree that we have limited budget, whether it may be uh, in the budget, mid segment, or luxury. Budgets are always limited when it comes to the art and accessorization, because most of the time the client has exhausted his money
I agree
in
with
his
you.
architecture
It's
and
always,
interior.
art is always the
It is
last.
most of the time. So what we do is something what we bring in a compromise, especially when we look at the guest room art. There is a huge quantum of art which is required. So we try to create a master template, master art in couple of them, and then replicate them digitally, so that the cost is more effective, things are much more better. So we try, but the most important thing is that we as a designer and architects need to have the regional influences incorporated in our design in order to make that property, give that property its own identity. So the guest remembers that through that particular thing, that this is X brand which I stayed, X hotel which I stayed, and it must be in Gujarat or in Delhi or in Himachal or wherever it is. So that identity needs to be created, and that can be contemporized in the format.
Right. Rishu, your thoughts? Because this, I think, drawing on the elements of your immediate environment
Yes.
gives a particular character to the project you're working on. Have you been successfully experimenting with this model?
Yes. So in continuity to what Mr. Kozema said, the change has to come from within. Well, we need to stop aping the West hotel chains in terms of design, look, and feel. Somehow we have lost our own style and forgotten the heritage we have. I feel, the hotel chains should appoint a consultant specifically for the art. Be an architect.
I could not agree more with you. And just to say that Natasha was saying that art comes right at the end when the client says they've got no money. I think it's up to us as designers, as architects, to ensure that the initial budget has a percentage which is left for art and accessories.
Yes.
Then only will this change. I mean, even in homes, I kind of insist on it when we are working out the budgets, because there's no point in having a wonderful home, beautifully architecturally done, beautifully furnished, but there's no budget for art. So what's happening to the walls?
So, Rishu, how do you take this forward? Do you see hotels being receptive to this line of thinking?
So I personally feel, from the day one, there should be a set budget for art and furnishings.
Exactly.
I mean, many hotel chains do, but during the course of construction, it gets diminished, with the passing phases. At the end of the project, there is hardly any money left to cater for furnishings, art and everything. And we as designers, finally have to settle for compromises with our vision of the final outcome. So I feel that, something to start with, maybe a 8 to 10% figure of the total budget will be a very high figure, but certainly 5% of the, total cost of the project should be kept separate for the art and, the craft.
Right. That's
what
I wish
Rishu,
the purchase managers were here. They'll say 0.5%.
Rishu, on the lighter side on this particular thought, I have to fly you to Australia for a holiday trip. Rishu, on this particular thought that you have of soft furnishings and art, I would have to recommend the owners of my company to fly you to Australia for a holiday.
Yeah, of course. Even for soft furnishings, I mean, we have huge budgets for the furniture, but then it comes to the fabrics, I mean, that's a very minuscule amount of the total cost of the furniture. That's
Mohit, that brings me to the question I've been wanting to ask you ever since.
Suresh, I just wanted to interject, if you don't mind, if that's part of my job. I agree with what both Sunita and Rishu have said, and it's very true that there should be a budget. I don't think the clients are unaware of it. They are aware of it. It's just a matter that, as Natasha said, art sequentially comes right at the end. It's not that it's not planned, but it's just that the budget keeps getting chipped away. So you make a budget, maybe you've kept already 5% or 7% for furnishings and art and soft furnishings and everything. But as the architecture starts, and then the construction happens, and then the interior happens, and everything goes a little over budget and a little over time, in the end, nothing is left. It's not that the planning is not there. I'm sure the project managers know it. I'm sure some very discerning owners of hotels know it. But it's just that, unfortunately, it just doesn't happen. It's a practical part of life rather than actually lack of planning.
Right.
That's why it will be better to appoint.
So I would like to add here, Hemant, my experience in this case has been that most of the time the numbers which are crunched by initially for the financial closures are so thin. There is very thin margins in it. And this is something, and sometimes they are so badly fudged in order to get the project look very green and very nice and kind of things, that those budgets are, as it is, they are nowhere to be seen in initial stage only, which is, I think so there is a lack of financial planning. Even the owners who know about it, they agree to it, because otherwise the financing agency, funding agencies, or banks would not fund them if the budgets are going to be that thick. And then they have to go for revalidation, reallocation of funds, and there's a lot of complexity involved in that.
Yeah. Josema, but I think the only way you'll really make it happen is buy your art in the beginning of the project itself. If you budget for it, no matter what kind of budgeting you do, in the end there'll be nothing left.
In an ideal world, that would happen.
If we have a consultant specifically for this from the day one, he will make sure that the budget remains.
Rishu, I'm afraid that the consultant will eat into the art budget. The 5% you kept, 1% the consultant will take. So you're left with 4%.
So Mohit, now tell me, now we have talked about art at length, and we hinted at soft furnishings, now in your business, there are two things. One, you got us all very excited about antimicrobial and other such fabrics, which you said you have introduced in hotels here. So we'd like an update on this, like a status report on this, because this is something a lot of people were interested in last time, and I'm sure people will be interested in now too. The second, I would like to know about in soft furnishings, too. Is there, because this whole movement towards getting things local, I mean, getting things local also means you sort of, balance costs a bit. For those people who want to project a green image, they also say that it's like cutting carbon emissions, So now, tell me, how do you deal in a market like this, where your products are coming from Australia, whether they come by ship or by air, they're coming from Australia. So that is the second part of my question. The first is about this antimicrobial and other fabrics.
Saurabh, actually, we were very excited about this antibacterial, antimicrobial fabric when we launched it in month of May or June. But frankly, we have not been able to execute any order with the hospitality industry. But we have done 4 or 5 projects in the office space, because right now, especially in the reception areas and the spaces where you have the visitors coming in, we have executed few of the 4 or 5 projects using this particular antibacterial, antimicrobial fabrics, wherein they specify that it should be treated. It cannot be an anti-COVID, because we don't offer an anti-COVID fabric, but antibacterial, antimicrobial fabrics is what we have to offer. So when we presented it to them, they said we would like to take it forward. So we haven't done any hospitality projects, but yes, 4 or 5 in the office furniture and offices, we have done that. And the second question about the local manufacturing, as I mentioned in my last conversation, because most of the mills were closed, they had not planned about this particular thing. So when the things started opening up, they didn't have the stock. And as I mentioned, we carry a lot of stock with us in the head office, and we had planned some shipments well in advance. So we were ready with the stock, and we were able to convert from the local manufacturers to move it to us. And because it's an Australian company, so we never had a challenge of a make in China kind of a thought process that has got into the buyers and our customers.
Okay. So
I hope I've answered the question.
Yeah, you've answered, but
I may ask, Mr. Agarwal, is all the products that you sell, I mean, all the soft furnishing that you sell, are they all made in Australia?
Ma'am, we have got 2 factories in Australia, mainly which manufactures the upholstery fabric, and then we have got tie-up with the Indonesian firms, and even something we buy it from Korea also.
And India?
Our exposure to China is pretty less.
And India?
India we do, but that is the range that we don't. Yeah, we do buy the curtain fabrics from India, but that is something which I don't promote here, because it's no point selling at double the price. So most of the curtain ranges comes from India, but that is mainly for our offices in Australia, New Zealand, and UK.
I see.
So something to learn from this. I'm sorry, but something to learn from this. Our quality is so good that it is being sold at twice the price. So we Indians should be proud of it. We should promote Indian products.
But of that twice the price, how much goes to the Indian manufacturer? One doesn't know. How much?
So if we have time, I can share. One of the project which in my early part of the career when I was working with one of the international design firm was doing concept, and I was developing it. We got a fabric which is Bhagalpur silk, and that Bhagalpur silk was specified, and it came from France. It was processed in France, supplied by US. It was $33 a yard. So that time the dollar used to be around 35 rupees or something like that, 33, 35 rupees. So you just imagine Bhagalpur silk, which was, and here if we fuse it with the best of the fusing agency, probably we would never lend to probably more than $4 or $5.
Right. So
that's a very important point that is being brought up, which I think that from where you source the material, it might not fit into the overall business plan of the company that you have, Mr. Agarwal. But the fact is, more and more needs to come out of this country. Why not make this country the hub and export? You know,
And we are looking at that particular option, because now we have got a full-fledged office plus 2 warehouses in Okhla. So we are looking at that particular option, wherein we would be soon tying up with some companies in India, but doing it on an exclusive basis, that they cannot sell that particular design, because
sure,
you know
of
the
course,
nature of how things work. So we are working on it, because we just have started this office in 2017, and it's been just about 3 years for us to establish ourselves. So we are looking on that particular option.
I think we'll chat later.
That's fantastic. Very good. Hemant, we are sort of running out of time. So would you like to say a few words to wrap up? And so what do you think has been the take-home message of this discussion?
Take-home message for me has been, I think we are definitely going to be looking at cost cutting, no doubt about that. Cost is going to impact all our purchase decisions and our design decisions. So that I think is a given. And in addition to that, yes, I think this webinar has at least brought out very clearly how we need to focus on local art and craft and local design also, regional design, as Kozema said, because that is where I think a lot of our future is, and that's going to give each hotel property an identity of its own. I think Sunita was right when she said that, instead of what she called uniformity of the hotel, which used to be a brand image at one point of time, that every Sheraton should look alike and every Radisson should look alike. Now it's not there anymore. And each property needs to be independent. And that similarly thing goes for the art that either Ishita or Natasha would provide for the hotel. Even the art can be localized, even the local art can be there. As Sunita said, Gond art, for example, in a contemporary setting. It could be a disaster, or if handled by a master like Sunita, it could be absolutely wonderful.
No,
It
handled by
depends.
anybody.
No, but it depends who handles it. It's very, very important. Mixing two diametrically opposite concepts, it's something that only a master would handle or even think of. So hats off to you there. And of course, I know you do that very well. So when Ishita was initially mentioning that she's a huge fan of yours, you can add me to that list.
Me also,
Great.
add on the list.
Okay, so you've got a big list here.
So why don't we ask Sunita ji to give the last words? And
Yes,
then,
save the best for the last.
yeah, the best for the
No,
last.
well, because I'm the eldest, the oldest, so I'm being given this honor. But all I can say is that, when one is cost effective, it need not necessarily be at the cost of good design. That is what I've always believed. That is what I have spent 50 years of my life, of my working life doing. And I think the sooner clients understand that, the better it is for the hospitality industry.
Great. Fun. I've just out of curiosity, what was the first hotel you designed in India?
Was a small hotel. It was 1975 in Khajuraho, called the Jas Oberoi, and where I really learned on the shop floor, because I know Hemant knows I am not a trained designer or an architect. I studied literature, BA, masters, incomplete PhD on Christopher Marlowe.
Wow.
And then became a designer, but quite by chance. Chalte ho gaya, but I'm glad that this profession found me. Because, but this is what I've done for the past several years, and I sort of teach and all sorts of things. But design, like being a designer or an architect, it's like music. A musician, I've always felt, you there has to be a God-given hunar first. Then one can hone on it, add more skill sets to it, build up a visual vocabulary, as I always say. But that has to be within. So, and as designers, we are always as good as our last project, because ours is such a visual profession. So, somebody might like me, but they're not going to give me $1 million project, as would happen in Egypt, unless one was able to deliver. So architects and designers have to deliver, and then only you get more work. So it's as simple as that. I know. But the young today, I mean, I have a daughter who's an architect, trained at Pratt and everything.
Wow.
And very early on, she said, should I want to study literature like you and then become an architect. I said, absolutely not. Mine was a slow boat to China. But, all this business of, since we're on the subject, all this business of saying that even non-architects can design, I think is totally wrong. I think it should stay with that profession if they're building structures. So I'm ruling out people like myself.
Okay. Well, you also wrote a lovely book on cookery, Lucknow's cuisine, So you also...
Chalte. I know, chalte, chalte. Of course, now...
That's the third line you've opened up.
But that's
anyway,
everything is poured into design. When they say, what should we do? I mean, what should we do? Please just read, think, travel, meet other people, experience other cultures. That's what makes a designer.
That's what excites Sorish the most, because being one of the greatest food critics in the country, any book on food is going to excite him no end.
Absolutely. And this is a very well written book. In case it's still available, people should go and buy it. Okay, fantastic. It has both memories as well as recipes.
Yeah.
So it's a very well interwoven book. It's almost like a great tapestry. So
thank you.
On that note, let's hope for the best. And I think the mood of this session was quite upbeat. People saw lots of not just green shoots, like almost saplings of hope, and they were on that. This has been the first session I've conducted in this round of webinars, where everyone has talked very positively. I hope this feeling, this sentiment percolates across the industry, and we have a lovely 2021 to look forward to. Till then, thank you so much. Take care. Take care of your health and stay out of COVID.
Thank you, Suresh. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you. Lovely to have met you all. Thank you, Hemant, for asking me. I had a wonderful time.
Always a pleasure.
All of you, I hope we keep in touch.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Hemant, particularly. You've been a very big supporter of IHE. And I hope we hope we'll continue this association.
No, the great part is I've got a few friends on this panel, and I've made new friends this time. So it's been a pleasure meeting Natasha this time. She's the only person I didn't know. Sunita, of course, as I said, I'm a fan. And Rishu, somebody I worked with, and Khozema also. I'm recently become a fan of his. I've seen his work, and I publish it in my magazine. Mohit, of course, I've been using his fabrics for a while now. And his people have been in touch. Samir has been in touch with me on a regular basis. And Ishita, of course, I work very closely with their artwork also. So Natasha is the new member of the team. And I'm be very happy to, I've dealt with your company of many years ago, and I would love to get back again.
Yes, love to.
Absolutely, it'll be a pleasure. And Sorish, once again, thank you for moderating this session and being the gracious host as you always are.
My pleasure, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye, Natasha.
Thank you. Lovely meeting you all.
Bye.
Bye. See you.
Bye-bye, everybody.